I'm Algebra Annie, and I am here to help you be successful in your algebra class. A person who never made a mistake never tried anything new. Albert Einstein. Our learning targets today are, I can multiply and divide real numbers.
So now we're going to be looking at multiplying and dividing real numbers. These are the rules that you need to know to be able to master this section. You will notice that we have the same signs being multiplied and divided to one another. Anytime you have the same signs either being multiplied or divided by one another, you will always result in a positive answer. Over here, you will notice the signs are different, with a positive times a negative, or a positive divided by a negative, negative times a positive, negative divided by a negative. Whenever the signs are different than one another, your answers will always result in a negative answer. So you really only have two rules that you need to know. If the signs are the same, the answer is positive. If the signs are different, your answer is negative. From there on out, all you need to know is your multiplication and division. So to summarize our two rules, if the signs are the same, your answer is always going to be a positive answer. If your signs are different, your answer is always going to be a negative answer. Our directions tell us to find the value of each expression. So our first problem is going to be negative 12 times 5. Well, I have a negative sign and a positive sign. So I have two different signs, which means that my answer is going to be a negative answer. And then I just need to know what 12 times 5 is. 12 times 5 is 60. And that is my answer, and I'm done. Our next problem is 8 times the fraction negative 5/4. We'll have a positive number times a negative number. So I know that my answer is going to be different signs, negative. Well, now I need to remember how to multiply fractions together. This is technically 8 over 1, and now that this number is a fraction, you just multiply straight across. So 8 times 5 is 40. 1 times 4 is 4. But then I need to make sure that I simplify these. I know that 40 divided by 4 would give me 10, but you can't forget the sign. You have a negative divided by a positive. Two different signs, two different sizes, that's negative. So my answer is negative 10. Our next problem is 35 divided by negative 5. I have a positive and a negative. Two different signs means I have a negative answer. And then 35 divided by 5 is 7. So my answer is negative 7. Our next problem is a negative 11 times negative 4. Negative and a negative, same sign, means I have a positive answer. So just for notes purposes, positive answer. 11 times 4 is 44. So our answer is positive 44. You do not have to write it as positive 44. I was doing that so you knew which one that we did. So I'm just going to go ahead and write my answer as positive 44. And that's it. Our next problem is negative 6 times a positive 7. Negative and a positive, two different signs. Two different signs means our answer is negative. And a 6 times a 7 is 42. So this is negative 42. Our next problem is negative 4/5 divided by negative 8/15. They're both negative, which means our answer is going to be positive because of the same signs. So now I just need to remember how to divide fractions. If you remember, we don't actually divide fractions, we cheat. So if you remember, you keep, so negative 4/5, you change, divided changes into positive, and you flip. So this is 15 over 8, and the whole fraction was negative, so you keep it as negative. A negative times a negative, same signs, means my answer is positive. With fractions, you just multiply straight across. So 4 times 15 is 60. 5 times 8 is 40. Now we need to make sure that we simplify the fractions accordingly. I know that both of these numbers can be divided by 10. So I know that 60 divided by 10 is 6. 40 divided by 10 is 4. Well, now I know both of these can be divided by 2. So if I divide both by 2, I'm running out of room. It can't go any further down, so I'm just going to continue to work my answer this way. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 3 and 2 do not have a number in common at all, so positive 3/2 is my final answer. So our next problem tells us to divide. We're doing negative 4 divided by 9 and 1/4. First thing, I don't like working with mixed numbers. They just kind of confuse me. So I'm going to change it. So we do 4 times 9, and then you have to add the 1. So 4 times 9 is 36. Add one more, 37. So this fraction is 37 over, if the denominator was 4, the denominator is still 4. So we just went ahead and rewrote the fraction 9 and 1/4 into 37 over 4. Well, now this needs to be a fraction in itself. Throw it over 1, it's now a fraction. How do we divide fractions? Well, we actually don't divide fractions. We cheat and we multiply. So if you remember, you keep, we change division to multiplication, and you flip. So instead of 37 over 4, we have 4 over 37. So we have a negative times a positive. Different signs means we have a negative answer. Straight across, 4 times 4 is 16. 1 times 37 is 37. Do 16 and 37 have any numbers in common? They do not, so this is your final answer. So our next problem tells us to divide. We have negative 3/4 divided by negative 9. So the first thing we're going to notice is that we have a fraction and a non-fraction. I need to make this into a fraction so I can do operations with fractions. How do you make a whole number a fraction? You throw it over 1. Well, now I see it's a division problem. I can't actually do division problems. We cheat, we make a multiplication. So how do you do this? You keep, so the fraction is still negative 3/4. You change division to multiplication, and we flip. So keep, change, flip. So instead of negative 9 over 1, we now have 1 all over negative 9. Now that I have fractions, we're just going to multiply straight across. Negative 3 times 1 is a negative 3. 4 times negative 9 is negative 36. So now I'm going to try and simplify the fraction. Do negative 3 and negative 36 have any numbers in common? They do. They're both actually divisible by negative 3. So I'm going to divide both sides by a negative 3. Negative 3 divided by a negative 3 is a positive 1. Negative 36 divided by negative 3 is a positive 12. 1 and 12 do not have any numbers in common, so 1 over 12 is your final answer, and you're done. So now we're going to talk about the properties of 0. If I have the problem 3 times 0, this means I have 3 groups, and in every single one of those groups, I have 0 candies. If I have 3 groups of 0, how many candies do I actually have total? I don't have any candies, so my answer is 0. With the same line of thinking, 0 times 3, if I had 0 groups, meaning I don't have any groups to put 3 candies in, how many candies do I have in the end? I have 0 candies. So if you ever multiply by a 0, your answer is always going to be 0. Now we're going to talk about division. If I have 0 candies in my purse and I need to divide that equally among my 6 children, how many candies does everybody in my family get? Well, I didn't have any candies to give everybody, so how many candies does each person get? They get 0 candies. So 0 divided by a number is 0. So now this is extremely different than 6 divided by 0. I have 6 candies. I have to divide them somehow, some way to people, but I don't have anybody to divide them with or into or give them to. Your answer is undefined. You had the 6 candies. You had to put them somewhere, but you didn't have anywhere to put them. Since they're kind of contradicting each other, your answer is undefined. So whenever the 0 is on the top, your answer is actually 0. When the 0 is under the fraction, your answer is undefined. The undefined part will help you remember that it is under the fraction. So using that train of thought, if I have 0 divided by pi, well, what does this look like in a fraction? This is 0 divided by pi. 0 divided by pi. I have 0 and I'm dividing it by something. I know that this answer is going to be 0. Even if you don't know what pi is, you don't know how to divide by pi, 0's on the top, your answer is 0. Pi divided by 0. Well, what does this look like in a fraction? This was pi divided by 0. I had pi candies, but I had 0 groups. The 0 is under the fraction, so my answer is undefined. So it does not matter how crazy the number is, how big or long or confusing it might be. 0 on the top, answer is 0. 0 under the fraction, your answer is undefined.
What did we learn today? I can multiply real numbers. I can divide real numbers. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow in class.